right, we got the intro out of the way. Making pretty good progress already. Goodness gracious. Welcome to Stay on Topic. Today, as you could probably tell, I'm doing a review of the one and only, okay, not one and only, but the 1996 version of The Nutty Professor, Eddie Murphy's Nutty Professor, also known as my favorite movie, also known as the greatest movie ever created, Fight Me. I've seen this movie more times than anybody can count. Like, my earliest memories as a human being involve this movie on VHS. I'm not kidding. It's not a joke. I was watching a PG-13 movie as a child, and it was my favorite movie, not Power Rangers. And I've seen this movie so many times, I kind of know the ins and outs. I walk around the house and I just randomly say lines from this movie just to piss my wife off, and I find great joy in it. So I thought to myself, I said, Self, why don't you look through this movie and just talk about what you like about it so much, and twist, what you don't like about this movie? What objectively does not hold up in this movie as a comedy and as a film? Great questions. And I can't say that I'm not going to be biased. So let's go through the movie and see what I can find in this little deep dive we got here. Stay tuned. All right, so some quick backstory on this movie. It doesn't seem like it's a very well-known fact, but this movie is actually a remake. This is what I consider a movie remake done right. It is a reimagining or a blackwashed version. Blackwashed. I've never used that word in my life. I kind of like it. Is a blackwashed version, so to speak, of Jerry Lewis's original Nutty Professor movie, which I believe came out in the 60s, where Jerry Lewis's version was more focused on the dynamic between the professor being kind of a nerd and the alter ego being just like this super cool Grease-like guy. I feel like Eddie Murphy's version just a little bit more relatable with the man that's overweight that's turning into this guy who's kind of like more than just super cool, just suave, just like a fun guy. And so let's look a little deeper into the story and the characters and see what we find. So let's be real. I don't think there's anybody that's seen this movie, even somebody like me who says this is their favorite movie, that will call the movie's plot complex, convoluted, anything other than simple and straightforward. And I 100% agree with that. And I'll even go further and say this movie being simple as hell is what makes it so great. This movie does not have to have twists and turns and all of these hidden plot points for you to enjoy the movie, and I think that works in its favor. It's not supposed to be a complex movie. It's a morbidly obese man who is generally always going to be the smartest guy in any room that he's in, but still has these self-confidence issues because of his weight. Kind of like what I touched on earlier, I feel like that's something that's super relatable, especially for Americans. Take it how you want it. To understand how it feels to especially be overweight or have a health issue and want to do better, but it's not always that easy. And for a guy like this, Sherman feels like everything in his life goes wrong because he's fat. Period. He gets into all of these little issues and these embarrassments. His family kind of just doesn't really care. He gets friend zoned, like all this stuff, and he thinks all of this is because he's fat. And so he does what a lot of people in his shoes would do. He takes a shortcut, and it leads to more problems. And I feel like that's what this movie does a great job at doing, is showing the bad parts of relying on shortcuts. The themes underneath the plot is what the greatest things of this movie is to me. You know, themes of depression, shortcuts like I touched on earlier, substance abuse, big thing that you wouldn't really pay attention to because you're laughing so much at the jokes because Eddie Murphy is hilarious. These are all great things that I'm going to expand on as I'm going through the actual story of the movie. Okay, so have you guys ever seen like a large or hefty person struggling to make it up the stairs and thought to yourself, man, it must be so hard for them. Like, I feel bad for them. If so, you shouldn't watch this movie. You really should, like, stay away from this movie. This movie literally starts off just letting you know how fat Sherman Clump is, the main character. He is getting dressed for work in the opening scene of the movie, and on TV he has like this Richard Simmons parody workout show going on. The Richard Simmons guy's played by Eddie Murphy, by the way. You would never know that if you ain't read the credits, because he did such a great job. It's hilarious. He has Mega Shakes stocked up in his fridge, which is a parody of Slim Fast. Clearly, he's not drinking them if he has that many. I'm gonna go ahead and assume. And he's if I remember right, he's struggling to zip up his pants. And they're not even showing his face yet. They're just showing him getting dressed for like the first minute or two of the movie, and you already have a pretty clear picture of how this man lives his life and what kind of person he is. Fat, because that's a characteristic, right? Yeah, a lot of people, I'm sure, in 2021 would not find that funny. But with saying that, it also really makes you wonder, why so sensitive? Never mind, I'm getting off track. So we follow Sherman on his walk to work. Yes, he walks to work. He works on campus. He's a college professor. He struggles up the stairs because of reasons. And we see a lot of students and just people in general, greeting him, telling him good morning, which goes ahead and gives us the sense that he's a pretty likable guy, right? So he makes it up to campus, and we see that there is a gremlin-like infestation of hamsters all over campus. And of course, this is Sherman's fault because he's fat. I'm serious. Sherman, the night before when he was locking up, turned around, and because he is large, his ass flipped the switch to let all of the hamsters out, and he just did not notice, right? So I will say one thing about this. Sherman shouldn't have got in trouble for this. Whoever put that switch there where it can be hit by an ass to let all these hamsters out needs to be fired. And somebody needs to fix this. Seriously. Coming from a guy who has had his belt loop and headphones caught on many different drawers and handles and doorknobs and been enraged by it, I can tell you I could have did the exact same thing with my belt loop and would have did the same thing. I would have gotten angry and I would have been like, I'm not closing all these again because I'm tired. I'm going home. They don't pay me for this. And we would have had the same result. I'm just saying. But anyways, back to the movie. I got off topic again. So in these beginning scenes, we get two out of the three main characters in this movie that are not played by Eddie Murphy. That being Jason, who is Sherman's lab assistant, and the guy that kind of gets punked for most of the movie, and then the dean, who is quite honestly a dick. He's just a dick. And it's hilarious. He calls Sherman into his office, and we get even more, I wouldn't call it backstory, but we get even more of an idea of Sherman's struggles, because he kind of goes down the line saying, like, this isn't the first time this kind of nonsense is happening. Like, every time Sherman walks on campus, there's some kind of shenanigans that are going to follow because he's fat. And he's just taking these fat jokes at him, like asking him if he wants a rack of lamb and things of that nature. And Sherman's just like, no, I'm fine. And we see Sherman struggling to sit in a chair, and when he leaves the lab, we see him accidentally open the hamster gates again. See, I'm giggling because this is hilarious to me. These are just all things that is in Sherman's daily life because he's a large guy. And you get to a point where you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm about maybe 10 minutes into this movie, 15 minutes into this movie, and I've already seen this guy get embarrassed quite a few times. I don't think it can get much worse. You're wrong. So after we watch Sherman's stomach erase a chalkboard in front of his entire class and he gets laughed at, he takes a break to eat to romantically eat a Snickers bar and gets interrupted by the third main character that's not played by Eddie Murphy, who is Carla Purdy, who is played by Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, I will come out and say straight up, after watching this movie with a critical eye, I will say that I feel like she is one of the weak links of this movie. And I won't even say it's necessarily the performance, because I don't think Jada had much to work with here. It is partially due to her wig, because it bothers me. Like, just watching her on screen, I can't stop looking at her wig. I feel like they spent all their money as far as makeup and wardrobe on Eddie, and they got to Jada and they were like, put this on, this works, yeah, you look great, go on out there. Because it's bad, man. And she's just kind of, I don't know, I'll get more into it, but her character just kind of irks me a bit. But moving on, she kind of comes over and she's just, hey, I'm a fangirl, supposedly. And he just goes in complete cringe mode. And when I say cringe, I don't mean as in like movie cringe where you just like, it was hard to watch that, but more like hilariously awkward. He can't even speak properly to her. He's trying to make jokes about chemistry and he's knocking stuff over because he's fat. He even at one point calls himself fat and says that she can't miss him because he's fat. And even this, I feel like, is as funny as it is even more great character, like showing us Sherman's character, because this is kind of our first glimpse at seeing that this guy has low self-esteem. It's very evident. These are some very self-deprecation is not the word. Is it the word? I don't know. I'm the only person in here. I don't know. I'm not going to get my phone to look up if that's the right word. It starts with a D. I'm just going to say some self-hateful language. Calling himself, like literally calling himself fat and kind of like nervously laughing about it and these things. And you kind of automatically get that sense where he's like, I've heard every joke in the book, so I might as well call myself fat, because I hate myself. I kind of suck. But, you're talking to me and that's cool. And so that kind of sets the stage for the next scene, which introduces everybody's favorite, the Clumps. I have a lot to say about this scene, but I don't want it to take too long, but it might take too long, so I'm just going to keep talking. This was amazing to me as a kid, and it's still amazing to me now. This movie this movie came out in 96, so it was being filmed probably 95 through 95, right? And there's no like advanced CGI or anything like that. I imagine just they're using greens. Of course they're using green screen, yes. So Eddie Murphy is playing virtually this entire family. That is incredible. And he gives each one of them their own distinct personalities, even though there's only 2 scenes in this movie that include this family. After this first dinner scene, you get a very clear picture of this family dynamic, and he did such a great job as these characters playing Sherman's brother, mother, father, and grandmother. He did such a great job that literally, I kid you not when I say they made the Nutty Professor sequel only because Eddie Murphy did such an ridiculously good job on this one scene. We have the brother who seems like he's just kind of like a jock type thing. He thinks he's a jock, but he's kind of past his glory days, so he's just kind of out here. And he has a son. He's a single father. His son, by the way, is the only character that's not played by Eddie Murphy. He doesn't really talk much. He's just an actual obese child. He's not wearing a suit. We have the mother, who is the typical black mother, hyper religious and is trying to be supportive and sometimes comes off as being embarrassing. The Hercules. Everybody loves that. It's hilarious. We have the father. We have the father who reminds me a lot of Eddie Murphy's a bit in Delirious about his actual dad, how he used to get drunk and tell everybody that this is my house. If you don't like it, you can get out. Like, he really reminds me of that, and I'm sure he took inspiration from his own father, with Sherman's father being the kind of guy that kind of doesn't care what anybody else has to say. What he says goes. End of story. His opinion is what matters, and nobody else need to tell him anything. And then we have the grandmother, who is just hilarious because she is seemingly a bit senile, but she's also pretty combative when it comes to Sherman's father, because they both have these opposing ideas and comments all the time. And she's a bit disgusting because she's old and senile. And so I really like how, well, I'll say this. I'll start back a little bit, some backstory on this scene. I've read in a lot of different places that the scenes with Sherman's family almost got cut out of the movie because of relevance to the plot. And for the second family scene, we'll talk about that when we get there. But for this first family scene, I'm so glad that they kept it in. Not only because Eddie Murphy did a great acting job here, but mostly because I would heavily disagree with this scene having nothing to do with the plot. I feel like this scene does an even greater job of really showing why Sherman is the way that he is. His family really kind of overshadow him. He's kind of, compared to them, he's really shy. He's in this entire dinner scene, he doesn't say much. He kind of speaks when spoken to, but that's about it. Everybody else is just talking about whatever comes to their mind, and Sherman's just kind of there. And when he does talk, he immediately kind of gets like pushed off, like rubbed off or whatever. Like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. They ask him like, Sherman, what you doing? Why are you not eating that chicken? And he's like, oh, well, I'm trying to lose weight, and all the calories come from the skin on the chicken. And he immediately gets cut off, and he's like, see, you don't know what you're talking about. That's why everybody on TV talking about losing weight, and you don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what they talking about. Luther Vandross don't know what he talking about. And it just turns into this entire rant, and you can just see it in Sherman's face where he's just like, see, this is why I don't even talk. Why do I even bother? And so you have this entire family dynamic where everybody has these huge personalities. And then there's Sherman in the middle, who is the guy that has the smallest personality, which makes him feel small. We already know that he has self-confidence issues. And now we just have even more of a reason to understand why he is the way that he is and why he is probably depressed. He doesn't really have anybody to talk to. He's just like out here trying to be smart, and he just keeps messing everything up. So with that being said, I just want, if Eddie Murphy is for whatever reason listening to this somewhere, sleeping on his millions of dollars, I just want to give you your kudos, because I know you said that this scene is thankless because of the work you had to go through to do it. I can't imagine him having to sit in makeup for God knows how many hours to get all this makeup on for all these different characters, record each scene for each character, because they couldn't just CGI him into a fat suit and put him in each chair, and then do each line acting like he's talking to himself, and do it with that level of brilliance. So kudos to Eddie Murphy. It's amazing. All right, I did not know why I thought that I would be able to rant and give my opinion on this movie all in one video under 20 minutes, when in reality I maybe got through a third of it. I don't really know. But this video's gotten kind of long, so I'm just gonna have to split this up into pieces. If you liked part 1, I will be uploading part 2 soon. But I'll see you later. All right, bye.